So, and what they did was put a couple of pages in from Huey Newton's Black Capitalism Reanalyzed, which folks can get in the Huey Newton Reader, which I have here in Kindle form. And from June 5th, 1971. And similar to what I think, somewhat similar to what I think you and I are saying about Kwame Ture, and even what he was saying in 66. There's something in here that anyway, there's a version of this, and Skeptical Mantis is here with us. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, if you guys. Nice to talk with you.
Greetings,
Good
peace,
morning.
peace. Good. So, did you want to? I'll let you start us off. Did you want to raise maybe why you brought this up, or what you wanted us to discuss? Because I definitely have come to my own conclusions. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, initially, my interest was in discussing Huey's theory of intercommunalism. I've always had questions about this, and it does relate to this essay about Black capitalism. I've never really gotten a clear answer about the significance of intercommunalism, and I've always gotten the idea that it sort of contradicts national liberation. He even seems to not even imply, I think he clearly says at some points that nations no longer exist and that the conditions for nations no longer exist. So I found it weird when I read through this Black capitalism essay that he's referring to the Black capitalists as the national bourgeoisie. He seems to be referring to Mao's theory of new democracy, which explicitly applies to national liberation. So I want to know if other people have ideas about intercommunalism and whether it contradicts Black nationalism or whether you think it's compatible.
So first of all, thank you very much. This is incredibly dope, and I really appreciate that this started again in the Discord. That's fantastic. Netfa, do you have any initial thoughts or responses? And then I'll jump in.
Yeah, I do have initial thoughts and responses, and it's my initial thought and the response is that the first thing I keep thinking of is what I hear Daruba saying all the time, that all politics is local, and then in what we're trying to do also with community control, and what not just what we were trying to do, but we got it from the Black Panther Party, and trying to start locally where we have to be in a community with Black people, and our people, which are segregated, by the way, for the most, particularly when we start talking about the class element, because that's very important. Black working class people live by and large in communities, that are away from other people, they're distinct from other people. And then when we begin to organize those communities, that's, to me, that's and what I would say is tantamount to establishing a liberated zone, so to speak, or trying to push for a liberated zone, autonomy, political power as we've defined it. Then and that those various communities, I'll just be quick with this, I suppose, that those various organized communities starting to forge connections with each other and having to interact with each other, because it is a globalized world and so many things are, they can't just be isolated to where you are. Then to me, that's tantamount to what Huey's referring to in terms of intercommunalism, which seems on its face to reject or to be contradictory to nationalism, but I don't know that it is. I mean, I think because if we're thinking about the fact that we have to organize our people, one of the afflictions of capitalism and imperialist settler colonial oppression, we're colonized people, is that we're disorganized. We are not organized to leverage whatever we do have and to coordinate our actions and our thoughts and defining, like we say, phenomenon, crystallizing and refining our ideology, which is necessary to wage it, to advance and wage the formidable challenges to our oppression. Then we have to start on these local levels to organize our people. And then on those local levels, we can't stop there because we can't protect our, and then this is also in Huey's, intercommunal, we can't protect and ourselves if we're only isolated to ourselves and to that one community. Communities have to interact and function with each other. And so maybe there is something, maybe in some ways, maybe it is, in the sense that it's not just about Black people, because you got indigenous folks, and then we really need to be forging all those ties, and coordinating all of our actions and be ready for the onslaught that's going to come as a result of it. Because it's, let's face it, we're not going to be able to organize ourselves with and not expect some kind of pushback from those who need to exploit us and who need, but anyway, that's my initial thoughts. I think that there's not a complete contradiction, but I don't think it's a contradiction. But
I actually, so first of all, I remember reading a couple of times that because Huey Newton was not seen as a particularly good public speaker, and I admit selfishly appreciating hearing this, to think like, someone this powerful could have a flaw perhaps in this way, but that because he was not necessarily a good public speaker, that the idea in particular of intercommunalism was not always well conveyed or well received, and was seen as being overly complicated and confusing. But to me, go ahead, Nefer. Did you want to jump in real quick?
No. Go ahead.
But to me, when I've read, particularly in Huey's in the Newton Reader or elsewhere, his breakdown of it, it seems, maybe, unless I've oversimplified it and don't understand it myself, it seems pretty clear that to Skeptical Mantis's point, he does say very clearly the nationalism it doesn't work anymore, because there are no nations to which we can decolonize, and there is no space. And then for my own work, I remember specifically he said, because there's nowhere, no geographic or political border or boundary protects against imperial communication and media. So, the propaganda can be projected across borders. So what he was saying was, all of us in the world, and this is correct, even to the point we were talking about, I think even this morning and the other day, the relationship, and certainly the other day with Jackie, we were talking about the relationship or the impact of Russia, Ukraine on African people and the working people around the world. That Huey was saying we all are connected, but we're currently connected in a reactionary intercommunal relationship, and we need to be in a revolutionary intercommunal relationship, where boundaries and borders as they exist are not seen or understood this way. The nations to which we all may have come from, or from which we all have come, perhaps, no longer exist, and we can't go back to them. So we need to figure out new ways of working together and relating to one another. Now, the way I've always incorporated it with my understanding of revolutionary nationalism is kind of how I see everything, and even specifically, or even particularly, how people enter political struggle via whatever particular identity, racial, ethnic, sexual, gender, et cetera, that they have assumed. That is, all nationalisms, all identity starting points are valid, equal, and deserve attention and space. But they are starting points and entrance points into a world that is beyond those identities and nationalities, and that needs to be in a revolutionary intercommunal relationship. So it's like, the nationalism is essential for, individual or community identity and radicalization, but that has to be expanded and understood, and recognizing something beyond those particular nationalities. Lastly, in terms of what he says here in this Black Capitalism Reanalyzed piece, and to your point, Netfa, about political power, and even what we were saying just a minute ago about Kwame Ture, the key difference here in this piece that I think is misunderstood, certainly in today's discussions of Black capitalism, and certainly those who are claiming to do the positive version of Black capitalism that Huey discusses here, is the radical political organization initially of the Black Panther Party, and then of the community itself. So what he is presupposing here, Newton that is, in this piece, is that there is the existing radical Black Panther Party that is checking Black capitalists in the community to both assure that they are going to work for the community, and if not, can be dealt with by the community. He is also presupposing that they will, through, as he explains, a dialectical approach, that is these Black capitalists and their businesses, that by supporting the positive aspects of their ability to control institutions in our community, the contradictions of capitalism will be exposed and pulled out and put under the light of day, and then radically addressed, in part because there is this pre-existing and presupposed Black Panther Party that is going to help marshal and vanguard this transition. What I'm seeing happen is all of the positive discussion of Black capitalism today is discussed and promoted all over the place, absent an organized Black Panther Party or radical Black community, and absent the check or balance of saying, we're supporting you in your entrepreneurial endeavor. Where's the return that comes back to the collective?
Right.
So I'll stop there and let any of you. Okay, well, damn. All right. Okay, I'll take that. But I do want to say very clearly, also, Skeptical Mantis, did you want to jump back in? Because also you raised Mao, and I did want to put on the table that as much as I have, once or twice made attempts, I am by no means qualified to talk about Mao beyond, some of the basics. So anyway. I'll let any of you, Skeptical Mantis, do you want to jump back in?
Yeah, I want to say that I think you make a good point, Jared, that Huey's discussion of Black capitalism is very different from how people are talking about capitalism or Black capitalism today as a positive force. Huey is clearly talking about it as a way to get closer to revolution and to use their resources and establish some kind of mutual benefit in the short term while we can get closer to revolution. So that is a good distinction to make. However, I still have this problem with saying that nations no longer exist. And then when you look into it, it seems like Huey is referring to Mao's theory of new democracy, which is all about nationhood. Can
you say a little bit more about that? Because I'm sorry to cut you off. I don't know enough. Can you give like a quick?
Yeah, sure. So Mao's theory of new democracy, to sum it up off the top of my head, basically it was the idea that there are progressive forces other than just the proletariat and the peasantry within an oppressed nation, and that would include sections of the petty bourgeoisie and the national bourgeoisie. And he distinguishes those forces from the comprador bourgeoisie, which are like the sellout bourgeoisie. The people, like the Black misleadership class would be an example in the US, like the section of the oppressed communities bourgeoisie, which does not have these positive aspects, which Huey refers to. It's the section that lives off of approval and sponsorship from the oppressor. And it's interesting that Huey doesn't actually mention that here at all. It seems like he talks about the Black bourgeoisie in a very general sense. Like at one point, he refers to the small victimized Black capitalist, and that would seem to refer to the petty bourgeoisie. But then later he speaks about it interchangeably with the national bourgeoisie, and he never mentions the sellouts or comprador bourgeoisie, at least in this essay. I know in other places he does. But I think that's a distinction that's worth making. My point still about...
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, about there's no nations, right?
Yeah, about no nations. I understand what Brother Netfo was saying before about the need to unite with other oppressed communities. But I feel that that's already covered in the previous developments of the Black Panther Party, because Huey says they started off as Black nationalists, then they became revolutionary nationalists, then they became internationalists, and then intercommunalists. And in my opinion, the move from internationalism to intercommunalism seems to be watering down and confusing the theory. Like there is really, in my opinion, no advance being made there. And there's some confusion because Huey refers to communities rather than nations as small units. But then when he gives examples of communities that have liberated their territories, he refers to China and North Korea and North Vietnam. So it's weird, like.
That's actually a good point, because initially I've thought, because initially I'm thinking, okay, I'm following, and my response would be, and my thought has always been, the jump from internationalism to intercommunalism is progressive in that even internationalism is still based on the initial European division of the planet geographically to support their empire. So that by moving, that internationalism still starts with, you know, we are the United States, China, North Korea, South Korea, Ghana, Nigeria, and but in an internationalist view has a radical, you know, understanding of their relationship. But intercommunalism would say we're not even seeing those formations. We are now something beyond that, because those were themselves imposed boundaries. But then to your point, so anyway, that's how I've always understood it. But to your point, I think it is, I mean, he still does come back to referring to even liberated spaces by their same national, I don't know. So anyway, that was just my I don't know. That's just my thought, my initial reaction.
Yeah, can I add that when Huey refers to Black communities throughout the country, he refers to specifically San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New Haven as just examples. It seems that he's focusing on urban communities, distinct urban communities, and he never refers to the South or the Republic of New Africa, which is, I think, a pretty big thing that he didn't mention, because he talks about Black people. Let me see. He says that they're a dispersed colony because they did not have the geographical concentration that other so-called colonies had. So how can he miss the geographical concentration of the Black South in this discussion?
I don't have an answer to that. Netflix, do you have an answer to that? No. I don't have one.
No,
one.
I mean, I appreciate all the points brothers making. That's, you know, everyone. Man.
Furthermore, can I add one more thing?
Go ahead. Go ahead. He messing us up all morning. Go ahead. Keep going.
So another big problem that this leads to, in my opinion, is that urban guerrilla warfare has been pretty much unsuccessful for the most part. I mean, if somebody could make it work, I'd love to see it, but this excessive focus on urban areas really doesn't leave space for protracted people's war, which is based on mobility over a large space, over a large time. And I think that's one of the biggest contradictions in the revolution in the US right now. Like, a lot of people live in cities, but cities really are not conducive to protracted people's war, which in my opinion has been shown to be a consistent strategy that can work. So I have thought for a long time that it would be necessary to one day, I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think one day it will be necessary for revolutionaries from cities to develop kind of like a recruitment pipeline where they start sending people to more rural areas. And you could see that in the Cuban Revolution, there was kind of a similar thing. There was an urban movement, but then people would get sent to the battlegrounds, which was really in only, I think, the Sierra Maestra Mountains, something like that. Like, they sent people to that region when they would go underground, or they would be wanted, or they could no longer live in the urban areas for whatever reason. I think that's going to be necessary as well here.
Hey, yeah, all I know is after this conversation, I'm going to go watch our BLA roundtable on the channel again, and then I'm going to reread, I think, some of Blood in My Eye and see what you know, what Real quick though, Manny Nile raises this question that I think is addressed by Huey's argument here, that would Huey have considered small business owners as Black capitalists? And and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but as I'm looking even at the highlighted portions here, part of what he would see them as, he would see small businesses as part of the Black capitalists or the national bourgeoisie, as Skeptical Mantis points out. But his positive spin again is to suggest that by changing the Black Panther Party approach to Black capitalism and saying we're not just going to castigate it and condemn it entirely. So I was even thinking, would my own approach be seen as wrong by him today? Because I am very aggressive in condemning it, but he's saying the Black capitalists, the small businesses are our Black capitalists, which is our national bourgeoisie. If we, instead of condemning them, encourage them to play a supportive role, then just by the fact of their existence, the contradictions will become clear, and we will see that socialism is the, in fact, necessary step that needs to be taken. But so the main point of this section here is to say we're not going to just come out and condemn them. They are part of the community. They can play a positive role in the community. And then again, because we have a radically organized Black Panther Party and extended community, we can check them from becoming a scourge that I think that they are now. So because as he's saying here, we did not make a truly dialectical analysis of the situation. That's why he's talking about the survival programs pending revolution. He talks about receiving money as the party from monopolies, humanitarian philanthropists. At the same time, we were engaged in a blanket condemnation of the small victimized Black capitalists found in our communities. This tactic was wrong since we received money from our survival programs from big white capitalists, and we freely admit that. We recognize that the small Black capitalist in our community has the potential to contribute to the building of the machine, which will serve the true interests of the people and end all exploitation. In wars of decolonization, the national bourgeoisie supports the freedom struggle of the people because they recognize that this is in their own self-interest. Since the people see Black capitalism in the community as Black control of local institutions, this is a positive characteristic because the people can bring more direction and focus to the activities of the capitalists. So far as capitalism in general is concerned, the Black capitalist merely has the status of victim because the big white capitalists have the skill, make loans, in fact, control the Black capitalist. If he wants to succeed in his enterprise, the Black capitalist must turn to the community because he depends on them to make profits. He needs this strong community support because he cannot become independent of the control of the court. So he's saying we need to have, and this is where he's starting to say that the Black capitalist, will support the community because they will be forced to contribute to the Black Panther Party survival programs. And that's where I've already summarized that point about the dialectical relationship. And then the community will see those who support their survival and patronize their places. So we said, again, if they support us in the struggle, we'll support those businesses, and the businesses will see that, and out of self-interest, because that is what the national bourgeoisie is looking for, they will support our programs. But he is clear there's no salvation in capitalism, but through this new approach, the Black capitalist will contribute to his own negation by helping to build a strong political vehicle which is guided by revolutionary concepts and serves the vanguard of the people. So
that's interesting, that last part about the negation, because I don't know. I think of when I listen to that or read it, actually I read that I think of like places like Cuba or places where there are small businesses, and so they're not, and even have seen documentaries and stuff where the business owners will talk about the virtues of socialism, you know, having experienced both, you know, pre-revolution and afterwards. So, you know, I don't know. It's not, yeah, it's not like an either or, that there's no small businesses or no small, you know, under socialism. But, you know, anyway, that's just a different.
You know, I got to learn more. I got to go back and read more Mao and get more clear, learn more. But you know, but this is sort of the point. Like, you know, I don't see this building bridges with the Boyce Watkins crowd as a possibility, unless because we are insufficiently organized to contradict the narrative that is attached to the Boyce Watkins approach, because he's not approaching it, despite some of the symbolic similar use of some language, he's not approaching it in this way that Huey Newton is describing, and he's not approaching it in a way that he's being forced to respond to a radically organized community. So at this point, we would be engaging Boyce Watkins' audience from an unequal position of power, I would argue. And we would lose the narrative battle overall because yeah, well, that's it, you know, and that's the key part that I think is missing in the differences between what Huey is saying then and what we're saying, or what think we're saying now. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.